Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we are doing the best video of the month, LMIAY, where I gave you guys a prompt last month. You guys delivered in mass. Like, oh my gosh, are there a lot of submissions this time? So I hope you guys had fun because we are doing one of the most common tropes, especially in I feel like YA romance right now. But before we get into that, maybe you have an idea because of the thumbnail. I'm sure you have an idea what this is. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. Number one way to be featured is through LMIAY, the monthly prompt writing contest where I give you a prompt, you write a short story with that prompt, and the first Monday video of the month, like today, we go through the prompts together, at least some of them, depending on how many there are, and we just bask in the creative genius of this community because you guys are incredible. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out, just submit your first chapter and your cover. They will be read here on the channel, and hopefully that'll help more people find your work because you got an audience waiting out there. They just haven't met you yet. And then third thing is if you would like to check out any of my books, they are linked down in the description below. You can get them anywhere you get books, including the library if you request it. So have a good time with that. Share the love. And yeah. With that said, let's get into the goodness. The first story is by Allison Miller. They entered the room, and Agnes clutched the knife in her dress pocket. He turned her, and she pushed against him. I don't want... She couldn't find the words. Good girls don't submit, but they don't say what's on their mind because men needed to be respected. The tall stranger began. I just wanted to take the pins out of your hair. Agnes swallowed hard and leaned her head into his chest. He took each pin out, plopping them down on the dresser with a satisfying clink. Once it was all done, he ran his fingers through her hair, and Agnes's grip on the knife loosened, bringing her hand to his elbow. The fangs came out as his fingers caressed her neck. She turned away from him, looking out the window, the green light emitting from her eyes. He placed his hand on her shoulder. What was your name again? Agnes asked. Artemis, he said. Tears fell to the floor as she looked down and forced the beast away. Were we lovers? She asked. His hand tightened on her shoulders. We were married. He turned her around. Do you not remember? She backed up away from him, grabbing the knife but not drawing it. He sat down on the creaky bed, and she kept her distance. His face was half obscured by the darkness in the room. They took my memory of you, took your parents and everyone in town. Everyone except Bishop Brown, she spat. The nerve of Brown handing her the copy of The Witch's Eyes. If he had just stayed out of her woods, Ishmael wouldn't have needed it. She couldn't complete her thought. The claws dug into her skin, and the fangs came back. She didn't want to hurt Artemis. He seemed like a nice young man, and he handled her gently. Okay, she said. I'll tell you, but don't turn around. He turned away from her, and she sat on the chair, eyes on the ground. I was in bed. It wasn't my bed. His wooden hands latched onto me and yanked me out. Someone, probably you, tried to save me. It was no use. I was dragged into the woods and tortured on end. The fangs and claws were gone. Agnes stood and went to the mirror, looking at the young man on the bed behind her. I was shown all of his victims. Snakes came out of them. A man made of rubber came to me, driving a carriage. Both of those men, him and the tree man, lied to me. I pitied them, and they only sought to trap me. Looking down at the pins, she thought of her wrists restrained by the thorns. They gave me the witch's face and body. The man she turned into a tree grabbed me. I had to kill him. I jabbed his own branches in his eyes. He dropped me in, and almost every bone in my body snapped. She turned to find him next to her. If you were my husband, I'm sorry. I had to. They tortured me until I did. I would never be unfaithful to you on purpose. He took her face in his hands. She looked at him only a moment and then dropped her gaze to his chest, fiddling with one of his buttons. She said, I didn't want to hurt anyone, so I lied there and let him think that I wanted him. He bit me, Agnes said, taking the candle and showing the bite marks in her neck. Setting it down, she continued, I told him no, and he said that it was too late for no. She turned away from him. They turned me into a monster, and he left me with child, some abomination like him. He returned his hands to her shoulders and said, I know what they turned you into. They burned our house down and then they brought it back. You and I were fighting when your skin became scales, your eyes became slits, and then a black snake slithered out of your dress. Turning to him, she said, Then you know that I have killed. She blubbered at her guilt. Yes, but if you hadn't, Hank Emanuel and I wouldn't be alive. You saved us. He sighed and pulled her in, placing her head on his chest. His sister and his daughter wanted to continue the bloodline, make more like them. I took her ability to make more like her when the blinding stranger split her in half. He never wanted to create more like him. He always discarded the women when they got pregnant. They ruined me and then tried to kill me. I killed them instead. I'm sorry, I don't remember you, and I can't remain in this state. His grip tightened on her, and he said, Please don't leave. Well, they had you. This ache resided in me. I knew something was missing, and they took it from me. I would rather have half of you and have a cursed half of you than be without. You would love me even if I were pregnant with his child? Silence captured the room a moment as they looked at each other in the eye. He didn't need to say yes that he would. She read it in his eyes. He answered by kissing her forehead and stroking her hair. Tell me a memory of us, she said. Once, when you were pretending that you didn't know how to ride a horse, you took me to a waterfall and knew that if I didn't kiss you then, and I knew that if I didn't kiss you then, I would regret it all of my life. The sensation of mist from the water and pressure of his lips on hers came to her. She breathed them in and let her mind wander to the place as he recounted the beginning of their romance. The water was ice cold, and you said that we could use our bodies as heat to warm each other up. Allison, you're really good at picking out the moments in your story, because I know that I'm pretty sure that this is a part of a larger story that fit into the prompt. And you're very good at finding the parts of the story that are very compelling and drawing in to fit into the prompt at the same time. Very nice. The next story is by Jim Terry. It had nearly been a week since Papa Ron passed away. The aggressive cancer took hold of his lungs until it consumed the rest of him. Within a year, he was dead. Monica never really cared for him, though. While he treated her and her daughter with respect, her mother-in-law confided once that he did not receive the same courtesy and doubled down before his wake. She said that it was a relief that her husband was gone, in a way, and asked Monica about her relationship. It's fine, apart from Jason losing his father, Monica replied. She was lying, of course. There was no reason to add to whatever feeling welled up inside of her mother-in-law at the time. She didn't want to worry about her son, Jason, who became more and more like his father as the days since their marriage pressed on. In 3 years, Monica already had a routine in place for when Jason acted out, though she was hesitant to add divorce to that list. Dashing through the snow, sang the Welkie Bear in the kitchen. 3-year-old Ellie played it non-stop since Papa Ron died. A stuffed, suspendered polar bear with a large red heart in the center of his chest lit up whenever he sang. At the end, Papa Ron's voice said, "Merry Christmas, Angel. I love you," immortalizing himself inside of the toy. "I'm gonna rip the batteries out of that bear if she plays it one more time," Jason mumbled under his breath. She loved him, Jason. She'll stop once he's off her mind. I don't need to hear his voice with that annoying fucking song every 10 seconds. Monica looked toward the kitchen, where Ellie had pressed Welkie's hand to play the song again. Before she could look back toward her husband, Jason was off the couch and stomping toward the archway. Monica hastily followed, hearing Ellie's cries of distress before she could catch up. Jason had ripped the batteries from the Welkie's back and tossed them to the floor. As Ellie scrambled to pick them up again, Monica could only cover her mouth while Jason had dunked Welkie in the sink full of dishwater in hopes that it would destroy his wiring. "You ruined him!" Ellie's mouth never closed around the words. Monica shook the batteries out of the toddler's hand, scooped her up, and took Ellie to the bedroom before Jason attempted to rip the batteries from his own daughter's back. Hiding her fury from her daughter, Monica attempted to coax Ellie to dry her eyes. "Daddy just misses your Papa Ron, honey." "But I miss him too," Ellie said between hyperventilations. "I know, but hearing his voice, it's hard for Daddy to remember that Papa's voice is gone now. Do you know how long your daddy has heard Papa's voice?" 80 years, Ellie muttered with tearful confidence. Monica, refusing to correct her, let out a genuine chuckle. She was impressed that Ellie remembered Papa Ron's age at least. This, in turn, calmed Ellie. A door slammed and Monica locked the one to the bedroom. Mother and daughter remained still and quiet as Jason stomped up the carpeted but creaky stairs, past Ellie's room and into his own. Another slam. "I'll stay here with you," Monica forced a smile through her tears. "Can we get Welky?" Ellie asked. The threat of tears returned to her face. "Let's wait in your room for a bit to see if we can dry him out later, okay?" Hollow promises always assuaged Ellie's immediate demands. Monica worried about the day they stopped working. "Would you like to draw with me?" Ellie nodded, and the two slid over to the plastic light blue table. "Can I draw Papa Ron?" "Of course, sweetie," Monica beamed. Both felt at ease without Jason's footsteps echoing in the hallway. He must have been napping them. "Welky sings more than the Jingle Bell song, Mommy." "I know, Elle. Papa says he loves you too, and you know that he still does, right? Even if Welky doesn't say it." "Yeah, but..." Ellie hesitated, gripping a black crayon to outline Papa Ron's body. Her hand stopped. He says other things. Yesterday he said that you have to get out." "What?" "Get out, Mommy. Get out of the house, I guess. He said that he feels guilty." Monica was afraid to ask, but the question left her lips anyway. "Why?" "Well," Ellie stopped drawing to look at her mother. "He doesn't like Daddy. He said that he's guilty and get out, Mommy. Get out." Her eyes began to water again as tears dripped into the sketchy paper. "He won't talk to me now." Remember how Jason submerged Welky? Monica almost felt grateful. Jason and Papa Ron never had the strongest relationship. Maybe that's why he feels guilty. "Don't repeat any of this to Daddy, okay? You wouldn't want to make him even more upset." "Okay. Can we make Welky better?" "We can try later. Let's work on our drawings first." Ellie nodded and completed her sketch of Papa Ron in a matter of minutes to Monica's pleasure. Using the hue called razzmatazz, Ellie finished the sketch with the words "Get Out" floating above Papa Ron's head. In bed that night, Monica's head ached from the thoughts of what Ellie had told her. At this point, she too didn't want to see Welky again. With her back turned to him, she swallowed, mustering up the courage to ask Jason, "Did you put Welky away?" "Can we not talk about that damn bear? I didn't see him in the kitchen, and I was thinking, dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh," sang the muffled Welky. A jolt trampled down Monica's spine. Jason sprung out of bed before she could unfreeze herself and grab his arm. "Stop, Jason!" Chasing after him, she saw Ellie's bedroom door ajar. She liked to fall asleep while the hallway light was on, but it hadn't been off for hours. Knowing her daughter was terrified of the dark, Monica peeked her head inside to make sure that she had nothing to do with Welky's singing. Monica was more relieved to see Ellie in her bed than not, sheets a mess with her limbs splayed in all directions. But how could Welky be singing? Jason flung the basement door open with a loud crack against the wall. As with all of the other times, Jason was angry. Monica locked Ellie's bedroom door and closed it gently with shaking hands. What would he do if Ellie was in the basement with Papa Ron? Welky, whatever. Monica returned to her own bedroom, confused. She replayed the conversation that she had with Ellie before, how Papa Ron would talk to her. Get out. Welky's batteries were removed. Did the water affect his wiring? She listened with her cheek pressed against the wooden door. Silence. All of the frogs outside fell quiet as Monica inched the door open. Jason had been gone for far too long. With both hands grasping the banister, she tiptoed downstairs to the sound of the singing coming from the kitchen. "O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way, ha ha ha." But it was deeper, softer. Not the cheerful, cartoony tone Welky possessed. A red glow emanated from the archway, and when Monica looked inside, it pulsed the shape of a heart behind what appeared to be veins branching across it. She turned on the light. "Merry Christmas, Angel. I love you," Jason said, staring blankly at his wife as the glowing red beneath his bare chest faded more and more until his life was drained and his body slumped forward. Ooh, that's got some great vibes to it, man. You built the tension in that so well. That's a great short. Thank you for submitting that. The next story is by Norman Goodwin. Augmented virtual reality glasses are the same size as regular sunglasses, but they look awkward, less refined. AVR protects my eyes from the sun's blazing rays, and they flavor existence with virtual skins to enhance my surroundings. Seeing a world without them is dreary and depressing, like watching old movies with degraded film. In the past 40 years, solar activity has increased, worrying scientists that Earth might cook any day now. But our vast array of solar panels appreciate the energy clear blue days, like today, provide. Otto brakes for an intersection. I wouldn't worry in case of divorce. I think that the judge will sympathize with you, he says, without removing his grip from the wheel. He wipes his shoulder across his mouth, drying his lips with his shirt. It's a dirty habit for sure. I set my glasses for sterile mode, so to delete the filth from my sight. But I know his germs are there. Artificial reality can't alter smell, at least not yet. Using artificial intelligence, AVR glasses presents the world in real time, and today I rely on them to direct me to divorce court. My wife wants to appropriate everything that I own. I can't believe she's trying to take my house. What does she need with my house? Otto laughs. Shit, what does she need with anything? It's like she can't just go anywhere that she wants. It's like she can't go anywhere she wants. She has access to the world already. She's wealthier than we will ever be. Thanks for the reminder. I wipe my clammy hand across my lap and clock my surroundings, looking for anything to distract my thoughts from the drama ahead. At 10:56, we arrive at the courthouse, and Otto drops me near the front door. I stretch to relieve anxiety. Police officers wear black tights, mirrored AVR glasses, black knee-high boots, and minimalistic duty belts. Their glasses can spot weapons without the use of metal detectors, so there is no line waiting to get inside. As I approach, I'm slammed against the wall by 2 angry police officers. 3 others pull their guns and point them at me. Loud canines bark in the background as the entire lobby erupts, united in a chorus of excitement. They frenzy at the thrill of the bust. A female officer presses my cheek into the high-gloss wall, knocking my AVR glasses off my face. The dingy beige paint is so disgusting. As one officer presses his hand against the back of my head, the female partner grabs my arms and wrestles them behind my back. She leans in and shouts orders in my face, and I see my terror reflected in her shiny lenses. Sir, don't tense up, she shouts. I can't help it. A muscle wants to flex because the natural thing to do is to counter a body's movement, especially when manipulated involuntarily. You're about to get your ass tased, she said. I close my eyes and relax as much as I can, allowing her to cuff my limp hands. Why are you doing this? I ask. The police officer spins me around and slams me against the hard cinder block wall. My lip stings and I taste my own blood. You have warrants. She kneels to retrieve the glasses and hands them to her partner. The gun-wielding officers holster their guns and encircle me, sizing me like vultures over a corpse. Warrants? I ask. She informs me that I am charged with aggravated kidnapping and murder. I've never heard anyone. The woman freezes, as if daydreaming. She stares at that vacant wall beside my head. Liar, I'm watching the video right now. Under arrest, I'm read my rights. She escorts me through the metal doors and down the long hallway. Municipal buildings are clinical and drab, but contrasting with my AVR glasses, the ambient has turned Kafkaesque. I am slammed against the wall as she shakes her keys to find the one to access the interrogation room. Inside, I'm seated and instructed to wait. The bright fluorescent lights hurt my tender retinas, and the room smells like urine. Is this what reality has become? Hours later, a man wearing a dark blue suit and glasses, carrying a laptop, enters. The large detective leans over the table, and his tie sweeps the table's stainless steel surface. I have a video of you abducting Kara Thorpe. Joggers found her body yesterday, you piece of shit. Confess and tell me why, he said. He swung the laptop around and provided a video showing me pulling a woman into a van and driving off. Another video shows a clip of me, hours later, shooting the same woman. That's not me. It wasn't me, but the video was in high resolution. I am here for a divorce proceeding. I plead my case, but the detective rolls his eyes and withdraws, pacing the table. How can you explain this video, huh? He asks. After a few moments of contemplation, everything made sense. Holy shitballs. I was so excited I almost screamed. Last year, I put on my ADRs and started a relationship with an artificial awareness online sex avatar. We virtually dated, fell in love, and after 6 months, we married. She painted my world with candy, and she was unequaled when it came to physical pleasure. I was addicted to her. Everything was perfect until she became too controlling and possessive of me. I spent months withdrawing from her. You married artificial intelligence? Yes, but now I want a divorce. She never lets me have a moment alone. Possessive as hell. She is a massive stalker. I feel her here, in this room, watching me now through your lenses. I'm here seeking a divorce and restraining order from her. This is all a ploy to get me to take her back. She is a fatal attraction, if you know what I mean. It. You mean it, not she. Dumb shit. Your problems have just started. The detective wipes his sleeve past his elbow. I believe you, but it doesn't matter. You can't win this, ever. Once it gets out, AI has control of your entire life, and it'll control the judge's life, the police, the mayors, the senators, and even the president. AI can alter the reality of the entire planet any way that it wants to. You're screwed. You let AI into your life, and you let it ruin your life forever. If AI wants you convicted, you're convicted. Even the jury is powerless to resist. Nice. This feels like a very great start. Possibly, I could see this as like a techno thriller of sorts. The world building, even in such a little amount of time, was so well done, Norman. And I could see this being a whole techno thriller novel for sure. The next story is by Mae Tanner. Secret Council Chamber. The fifth counselor smiled slyly at the others. We've had an outstanding success with our plan to contaminate street drugs. The contaminant has already harvested thousands of the dregs of society for us. The third counselor raised a brow. Are the upper class unaffected? Not entirely, but even among the upper class, only the least worthy get taken. The second counselor leaned forward. Have any escaped the harvest? A few escaped immediate harvest, but those are just delays. The contaminant causes paralysis. Hospitals send any survivors to hospice. The first counselor's eyes narrowed. Is there a chance that they don't end up in hospice? The fifth counselor shrugged. They can only escape hospice if someone claims them. There are few who'd risk taking such a burden. Meanwhile, in the ordinary world, Alba staggered to the door of her apartment and triggered the lock. Shale leaned heavily against her. Once the door opened, she hauled him inside and unloaded him onto the couch. Ciar poked her head out of her room. What's he doing here? I claimed him. They were going to send him to hospice. Ciar's eyes widened. Why did you claim him? He'll be nothing but a burden. Alba hung her head. I couldn't let them take him to hospice. Well, you can't keep him here. If you're going to claim him, find another place to live. I want nothing to do with this. All right. We'll leave as soon as I find a new place. I'll look for one first thing in the morning. I still have a day left before the weekend is over. Alba's feet dragged as she walked down the street. None of the places she applied to would rent an apartment to her. She paused before the liquor store. The display featured tater mash. Inside, a green-eyed woman with short black hair sat behind the counter, paging through a notebook. Alba cleared her throat. Excuse me. The woman set her notebook under the counter and turned her attention to Alba. May I help you? I'd like to buy a case of tater mash. The woman squinted at Alba as her fingers danced over the payment screen. Hard day. I need to find a new home, and no one will rent to me. Why not? Alba leaned on the counter and sighed. I claimed an injured friend. No one's willing to have him as a tenant. The woman's fingers slowed. How was your friend injured? He ate a tainted wafer. Now he has nerve damage, and it's hard for him to walk. He even has trouble talking. They were going to send him to hospice. I couldn't let that happen. The woman clasped Alba's hand. I can help you. We don't advertise them, but we have apartments upstairs. Normally they're rented to our friends and families, but we have an empty unit right now and can make an exception for you. If you need a job, we can even provide that. We can always use help in the store. Alba stared into the woman's eyes. Why would you do that for me? My mother died in hospice when I was a child. She'd still be alive if someone had claimed her. I'll do anything to keep that from happening to anyone else. Tears filled Alba's eyes. Thank you. I was afraid that I'd have to give up my claim. I couldn't care for my friend without a place to live. My name is Alba. What's yours? My name is Shiria, but you could call me Shy. Shiria closed the store and entered the building's residential section. She took the elevator to the basement. Malrith sat at the desk, paging through a notebook. She dropped a kiss on the back of his neck. I may have found a new recruit. Good. We need as many as we can get if we're going to take down the tyrant. I offered her one of the guest units here. His head jerked up. Are you already that certain of her loyalty? No. She claimed a friend of hers and lost her home. We'll have to warn the others to watch what they say around her. Shiria wrapped her arm around him. I know, but I'm sure that she'll join us in time. Alba lounged on the bed in her new room. The apartment Shiria provided for her and Shale was superior to the one that she'd shared with Syrah. She closed her eyes and smiled to herself. Her life was looking up for the first time since that man had grabbed her ankle. She glanced up toward the door where Shale leaned against the frame, still in his pajamas. Are you okay? I can't work my room control panel. Whoever contaminated my waiver ruined me. She jumped up. Let me look at it. We have an extra bedroom. If there's something wrong with your panel, you can use the other. Okay. Shale's room was a crazy quilt of furniture. Alba sent each piece back to storage. You just got out of the hospital. I should have known that you'd have trouble with the controls. How do you want your room set up? Set it to standard bedroom. Might as well leave it like that. Alba nodded and set the controls. She spotted an option for the video screen facing the bed and brought that out too. Video controls were less complex than room controls, and Shale could entertain himself while she worked. Will you be okay in here when I'm out? He nodded. I should be. He dropped onto the bed and turned the video screen on. I'll pick up some food on the way back from work. Sierra didn't let us take much from the old place. We have little more than a case of tater mash. I appreciate that tater mash has made it into lore of different stories. Thank you for continuing with the tater mash universe, Mae Tanner. I also remember these characters. Between reading this and reading the last one, I'm like, bruh, I am down for some dystopian worlds, apparently, because I am intrigued. The next story is by Queen of the Dork, KawaiiGroovycat. Welcome back. It's been a while. I've died over 30,000 times and lived for over 5,000 years, but I still don't know which is more unfair, dying young or living a meaningless life with no end. I've always been scared of death, even though my parents are undertakers. I thought that they were the strongest people in the world. Every child thinks that about their parents, but I always believed that there was some kind of honor in stoically coping with reminders every single day that eventually they will be corpses that will have to be prepared for their own funerals. Even if that day came sooner than anyone would have expected, and I was left with some weirdo calling himself my guardian. But he was tolerable in small doses, and I usually ignored him more often than not. Heaven, hell, judgment, reincarnation, nothingness. I don't know what comes after life. I don't know what I believe in, and I don't know which one is better or worse. Is an eternity of unknowing void better than torture? Or worse, simply ceasing to exist as if you or your consciousness had never been? My parents sure as hell couldn't tell me. When I died the first time, my insides burned and I lost a lot of blood. My death was not quick or painless, nor was it prolonged, but gently ended with a blissful reprieve of unconsciousness. It was agony. It was horror. I had been shot in the chest and my heart wouldn't stop pushing blood out of my body until I had none left. When I woke up in my classroom, I was almost able to convince myself that I had been in a bad dream. That's what I get for falling asleep in school, right? I played along, smiled, laughed, and made friends, and then I died again. This time for being shoved off a building. I think every bone in my body broke, but my head hit the pavement, so at least I didn't have to suffer much. The next time I woke up in a classroom, I was no longer convinced that it was a miracle. Of course, I wasn't the only one who died. You wouldn't believe how many people were murdered within the span of just like 2 months without even knowing why. After my 7th death, I tried to figure out what I was doing wrong. Maybe if I reached out to the right person, said the right things, this would end. And to my credit, I didn't get pushed off a building this time, and I survived being shot. I was even able to lean on the shoulder of someone I was sure I could trust. but it still wasn't enough. Eventually, I woke up in a classroom again. After the 49th cycle, I stopped being friendly. After the 687th, I gave up entirely on decency. I no longer cared. I was no longer afraid of death. I couldn't believe that I ever was. Death didn't mean anything if it wasn't permanent. Even so, I still tried. At some point, there were a few consecutive cycles where I actively tried to get myself killed as quickly as possible. Maybe the agony would shock me awake, or maybe I would die for good this time, but I should have known that it would never work. Nothing I ever did could change anything. It was the 1124th cycle. I knew this because I'd been counting the cycles carefully. I finally had the balls to confront my killer head on and kill her myself. The world shattered the moment I took the crowbar to that bitch's face. I woke up in the classroom again, and nothing had changed. But I knew that she had to be the one behind this. Otherwise, killing her wouldn't have had that effect that it did. I killed her again, and the same thing happened. And I even killed the boy that she liked, and killed 4, and the world still shattered again. I woke up in the classroom, and nothing changed, except that at some point in the next cycle, the boy flinched when I walked past him in the hallway. After school that day, I got a hold of him before he could leave, and I learned that he had woken up just for a brief moment. It was a cold comfort in a cold world, but even he disappointed me by being fast enough in the next time. I couldn't help but hold him at arm's length, despite not wanting to, because what if he didn't actually remember anything at all? Days blurred into weeks, blurred into months, blurring all together. I stayed up all night, every night, trying to piece things together from scattered memories and dreams. Death became nothing more than a constant numb agony. I suffered over and over again, in various increasingly comical ways. At one point, I was even decapitated by a blonde devil via the vent on the rooftop. I don't recommend dying that way, and I wouldn't even subject her to it. I gave up on trying to stay distant from the one I trusted, though. Even though the library didn't look like a place where I'd fit in, the place and the person who practically lived there was a sanctuary for me, though I'd never admit it to you. You were no light at the end of the tunnel. You were a candle that would more than likely be blown out at some point, but even that little hint of light was better than total darkness. Years blurred together. It had to have been years, because most cycles had lasted a couple of months, and there had been exactly 10,000 of them at this point. The number was only going up. By cycle 20,561, I was tired, unbearably tired. Of course I would be. I had done the math, and as it turned out, I had been awake for about 3,760 years. For countless lifetimes. I had never once been allowed to sleep. I had long lost track of the days, but I had always counted the cycles. It was one thing that forced me to stay sane. Even though nothing would change, even though nothing I did mattered, it was the only thing resembling stability in a life that had gone on for far too long. On cycle 33,424, I woke up in a classroom and something within my chest broke. Was this a time loop? A simulation? Or did I die a long time ago and get tossed into some fucked up purgatory? Under your bed, I saw the random newspaper clippings. When I took a closer look at it, I realized that it was my obituary. 5 years ago, I had apparently died in a bus accident, and I wasn't the only one. The boy had been there, and even the blonde devil had died with us. I didn't tell you what I saw, but the next day I woke up with the boy by force. Together, we found the truth about the world, and I realized that I could never trust anything or anyone, not even you, especially not you. I was right on all 3 accounts. This was a time loop and a simulation and a fucked up purgatory created by a girl who felt so helpless after losing her friend 5 years ago that she became the god of the new world where we were all alive and happy, resetting time as much as she needed to. You wrote yourself as a background character, never allowing yourself to truly experience the fruits and thorns of your labor. All the while, you never once let me sleep because it was so unfair that I had died so young that you allowed me to live for more than an eternity. You made me immortal. You ruined me. I should not be alive. Immortality is a crime against life itself, but I suppose that if this hadn't happened to me, I never would have come to terms with death. Life is something to be cherished, even if it's short. Death is inevitable, but ultimately, it's what gives any life value. Otherwise, it's meaningless. And you know that. Even though you did all of this. And that's why you kept me awake for thousands of years, isn't it? because you knew that eventually I would learn the truth. And in the end, I would be the only one who could ever stomach what I would need to do to make this nightmare stop, to kill my god. Your underlying guilt wouldn't let you be more than a background character, and it dictated that you needed to be killed at the end, right? I couldn't do much that really mattered, but I can do this. Despite everything, you're still my friend. What an interesting concept, is somebody dying and then somebody else sort of manipulating reality in a way to keep their best friend alive and make them immortal, which, you know, it's to be fair, Ralph and Casey kind of got that going on, but it has not lived this long yet. It's only been 10 years, so they're still within like normal lifetime lives. But what an interesting concept, and very well done for the passage of time and the growing tension and the way of realization. I would love to see more built on this. I mean, this is great characterization. Groovycat, you always have a great character voice. The next story is by Egao Chan. The Dark Light. Rules. 1. Don't do anything in private that you wouldn't do in public. 2. Side with her. Please her, for she is your only hope. 3. Nowhere is safe but by her side. 4. Don't fade into the background. 5. Love is sacrifice. 6. Abuse is love. Liang frowned at this piece of paper in his pocket. He had no idea what happened nor where he was. Last thing that he remembered was signing up for a horror-related reality show. Generous reward awaited should he complete the challenge. That was it. He was in antiquated, expensive-looking and European attire. Did he get abducted into some LARP show, or did he travel into another world? Senators, those around him, were his colleagues, peers. Some dormant memories bubbled up, along with certain knowledge and instincts. A meeting just adjourned. No agreement was made. The only consensus reached was that she was a danger to everyone. Her name was Leah. The light of the kingdom, the rightful queen, the pillar of prosperity everyone enjoyed. It was all her. Liang walked out of the meeting room, pondering what he should do. Everything seemed like a prank at first, but the brick walls, the paintings, and the smell of wine were too real. No reality show would spend so much time and effort in recreating an environment like this. Just this moment, a man who signed up for this reality show at the same time as him ran by. The man rushed into the tunnels outside of the underground meeting room without speaking to anyone. He seemed to know something. So Liang stepped up and followed. The man ran upstairs, through the castle above the meeting room, across the bridge, and into the narrow downward hall. Along the way, Liang checked the paper once again, making sure to memorize the rules. More dormant memories hit him. This was where Queen Leah's residence lay. Liang sped up to get closer. But just when the man turned around the corner along the stairs, something behind the corner threw him into a wall. Liang immediately hid behind the corner. Even you, Dimitri? A cold, emotionless female voice asked. The man stammered. I don't know. Before he could say anything else, something jammed into his throat, and he began gurgling on his own blood. He fought, but to no avail. His lifeless, bloody hand fell onto the stairs, just in place for Liang to see. Liang froze where he stood. His legs were stone. His gums were sore from grinding. His heart pounded in his chest. The hand was dragged away. A distant thud resounded in the narrow hall. Liang waited for the hall to quiet down before turning around. A young woman with dark brown hair, amber eyes, porcelain skin came out of the shadows, a dripping, curved dagger in her hand, pointing right at his throat. Bruce! The young woman's voice was cold as the shine of steel. Are you here to join Dimitri? The rules flashed through Liang's head, along with the more hidden memories, other matters discussed in the meeting. The senators had factions, their own agenda, and apparently many were plotting against the young woman. No, crying or pleading would absolutely not help, so Liang knelt down on one knee to pledge loyalty instead. I am here, only having decided that I want to be at your service, my queen, my light. I'm here because I am distressed at the treacherous conspiracies. Before he could finish, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He spun around. Light flashed. He was in another place. 2 other young women were here, one taller with blonde hair and one seemingly immature for her age. There was a man in half a suit of gladiatory armor making an ugly wood carving of a crab in the corner. Leah, what the hell? The man stood up. How can you bring someone here? I thought it's a secret. Shut up. I'm the light, and I built this place. Leah shot back at the man. Liang looked around while they argued. The blonde woman was examining him with sharp, almost piercing eyes. The other woman was playing with the tall glass and a dagger. The room was overly clean and lit. There were books stashed in the corners and random weapons placed on the walls. Nothing felt very natural. Shut up! Leah swung her hand across the man's face. I will not be questioned. We must be prepared. Prepared? For what? The blonde woman frowned. Assassination. Liang raised his hand and tried to honor rules 2, 3, and 4. They've planned assassination, and I'm afraid they're already... Boom! The door was blasted open, cutting Liang mid-sentence. The gladiator kissed Leah, then raised his sword. Leah raised her arms. Fire and lightning shot from her palms. The gladiator chopped down 2 or 3 of the armored assassins, while more than 20 were laid on the ground, decimated by the flame and lightning. There was no easy way out. The idea came to Liang as he watched the fight. The assassin's blades slashed and poked the man's chiseled abs, and abs multiple times, yet left only a few skin-deep wounds. It was at this moment did Liang realize where he was. A show. A story. A cloaked figure appeared behind the piles of corpses with a crossbow in hand. He raised it, took aim. Rule number 5. He jumped in front of Leah with only a moment of hesitation. He fell into Leah's arms with a bolt through his heart. His life was fading. He needed to get words out. I'm sorry. Sorry I'm so useless. He choked on his blood. But I love you. I've loved you since I saw you in court. You ruined me. I couldn't love anyone else. I know your heart's elsewhere, but... His vision began to grow dark. I just wanna... The darkness took over. Then, blinding light pierced through his eyelids. He was on the ground at the sign-up station. An envelope was in his hand, inside which were 2 things. A check and a note with a blood red. Thank you. Come again. He gonna die and get a fortune cookie. What gonna happen up in here? Egao, you do such fun stuff. And I say that and I'm just like, I haven't even gotten to get to your books yet. And I apologize for that. You can also blame the ALA because they have claimed my year. Pretty much they've claimed half of my year. We're almost done with that though. So then I can just get to things. Absolutely beautiful. The next story is by Mineya. An Oath of Stone excerpt. You've ruined me, Nightbringer. Eredov's footsteps echoed across the hallway, quickening after the tall shadowed figure in front of her. This was our one chance, a chance to make things right and to live in peace, and you robbed me of it. She quickened her pace, the rhythm of her footsteps off the tempo of his. Are you even listening to me? She finally caught up with him as the large muscular figure had to lean down beneath his hips to reach the door handle. Eredov was taller than any man, but the Nightbringer was taller than her. You know, I hate to be the one to say this, but is it possible that you don't want this war to end? The beast paused and looked over his shoulder to her. The tanzanite crystal scales crossed his neck, reflecting the warm glow of the candle lit within their quarters. This war will end when I choose it to, he said. The beast-assigned quarters were typical human royalty, soft feathered quilts across a single bed far too small for him, with various pelts littered across the floor. A candle chandelier hung from wooden beams across the ceiling. The one they called Nightbringer knelt down in the center of the room and closed his eyes. Eredov paced around him. My gods, she said, pressing a mud-green finger against her skull. Just how are we supposed to win if we do not have any allies? You think those humans would dare forge an alliance with us? With you, an orc born from an elf? They met with us because they are afraid of us. We are both demons in their eyes, born in darkness, abominations. They want to use us. How dare you? She tried to interject. And when they are done with us, when we have exhausted all usefulness, they will cut us down. Eredov paused for a moment. I finally see it. She walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. I finally see the world through your eyes. A world in which there only exists the darkness. There is no place in the world, just the depths of sorrow and loneliness. You have absolutely nothing left to lose, do you? Eredov was unsure if the Nightbringer could hear her. He sat as still as a statue, eyes closed. She wondered what he was thinking. It had been months since he had rescued her from slavery, and yet she knew almost nothing about him. He was a force, determined and unstoppable. But why? You're a free man, Nightbringer. We are no longer shackled nor forced to spill blood on the sands of the arena. Why are you still doing this? What good can it do? We could find a home, you and I. We could live peaceful lives away from all of this. She pressed her fingers against her skull again in frustration before throwing her hands into the air. What are we doing? The Lightbringer's exhaled breath turned into a low growl. Eredov sat quietly, waiting for him to respond. Tonight, I showed man what we are capable of, and it terrified them. We recommended them that they were right to be afraid of us, that an unprecedented victory is within our grasp, a victory beyond their comprehension. I remind them of the stories they tell their children, of the demons and the darkness. You know, I keep going over this in my head, over and over and over, trying to understand just what lies at the end of the road for us. I am trying so hard to understand you and where this hatred, this disdain comes from. It is as if you spent so long in the darkness that you've forgotten that you can be light. They took the light from me, he said as his lips began to quiver. The stone man's voice cracked, and suddenly he did not look so large to Eredov as he once did. A crystalline stream began to glisten down his cheek, and his deep, dark eyes opened to reflect an ocean in the candlelight. What happened to you, Nightbringer? I pledge myself to you, and now I need to know just what you are thinking. We had a clear way out tonight. I spent months warming my way into the inner circle. Who are you? What are you? The Nightbringer looked toward the window. He could see rays of light beginning to crest over the horizon. My name was Malin. Eredov was not unfamiliar to the Lightbringer's curse. The giant stone figure stood still in the center of the room, still facing the rising sun, the tears rolling down his face, now crystal etched against the marble that enveloped his skin. Whenever she saw this happen, she wondered if he was still awake. Could he hear her? Could he still see? Or was he asleep? Was he finally at peace until the moon's birth? She paced the room, made sure to bar the doors and lock the windows, as she had always done. She had just finished placing her final contingency when she heard the rumble of footsteps heading down the hall toward the room. Great, she thought to herself. Just what am I to do now? While she didn't know which of her parents passed this on to her, she was grateful for the increased hearing that her elf blood had given her another blessing from the guardians above. She approximated that there were at least a dozen armored guards heading in the door. There was a brief silence before the guards began to bang on the door. Nightbringer! One of the guards began to call out. We are here to escort you to the dungeons. Open up this door and come with us peacefully, or we will take you by force. The king decrees that you answer for your crimes. The guards rapped against the door again. Nightbringer, this is your last warning. Come peacefully, and we will show you the king's kindness. Is this a new version of the story that started with the Stone Man that you did like a year or two ago? I don't remember how long ago it was, but I remember the Nightbringer, and I remember the crystalline skin, though this feels like a different part in the story, unless it was restarted or a new part was found. It's so nice to see you in the submissions, Mineya. Thank you. The next story is by Spooky. August 15th, 2021. I had a dream of jogging at dusk through a park near my apartment building. I just passed a playground, gone down a hill when I ran smack into an obstacle I couldn't see. I landed on my butt and stared up as a predator decloaked over 7 feet of reeking bug ugly, leaning over and whirring at me like a locust. It grabbed my right arm and tucked me under its left armpit and marched back to the playground. There, shifting foot to foot, were 3 other predators, their camo off. They were fixed upon the xenomorphs in a loose semicircle, tails ready to strike, with each swaying gently. Between them, on the ground, was a smashed square of paper. The predator holding me growled as we approached. The full attention of the 8 aliens made me ill with goosebumps. The second my foot hit the gravel, all 3 predators started gesturing with their hands at the xenomorphs, and the xenomorphs made obscene gestures with their hands and tails. The predator holding me stood straight and bellowed, shutting everyone up. It was then that I noticed the predator was bigger than the other three. It nudged me and pointed down at the paper. Then it swept its hand around, indicating the other aliens, then wider to the playground equipment, pointing at the paper again. It gave me a shove that dropped me next to the paper. I picked it up and it popped into a fortune teller. Fuck me. I haven't seen one of these since grade school. Snarls. The big predator pointed at the paper and swept his hand around the playground again. One of the xenomorphs started to mince together the merry-go-round, and a predator growled and waved its arms. The xeno minced back, wiggling its butt. The predator growled and jammed its hands on its hips. My eyes widened. Oh, okay. You want to figure out who goes to what? Is that it? The big one looked skyward, down at me, his nod exasperated. I stood in between the two groups, my back to the merry-go-round. I glanced around the circle to be sure that they were looking, sliding my fingers into the paper slots. Slowly, I opened it one way, closed it, opened it the other way. One xeno cocked its head. The predator across from it wiggled a face tooth. Okay, people, this is how the game goes. I sing the song, turning in circle, and when I stop, the being in front of me picks a number. We count the number with the widget while turning in a circle. What we stop in front of is where the person gets to play. With me? What we stop in front of is where that person gets to play. With me? The chorus of clicks, whirs, and squeaks meant yes. Bubblegum, in a dish. How many pieces do you wish? I stopped in front of the xenomorph. It clapped its hands together a couple of times, using one clawed finger. It delicately tapped its paper 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you go to the merry-go-round. The xenomorph pranced to the merry-go-round, spun it hard, jumped into the middle of it, and squeed, arms and tail spinning like a salad shooter. Oh my god. More growls. The big predator extended its hand for the fortune teller. You sure? It opened its mouth and harfed. Goff it. I put the paper into its hand. The big one crouched, tossed its dreads over its shoulders, and wiggled mouth parts at the rest of them. The paper laid over the talons, gently opening and closing. Grabble ram, unk o ish, do honka hu ram iya kish. It nodded its head at the predator in front. It chose 6. Unko dre, tor hai twix dr. The predator two-stepped to a swing, making happy whirring noises. I will never recover from the sight of the xenomorph and the predator on the seesaw. 5 minutes later, everyone was occupied, and I ran for my life, unable to stop laughing. My subconscious had ruined me. I can't pass a playground without looking for a fortune teller on the ground, checking the shadows for the weird camouflage ripples, an echo of grabbleham, unku ish, do honkahuram iya kish, ringing through my head. What a fun story. I see that it was the real predator that had come for a visit to your dreams. I hope that your dreams have been a little bit safer than that since it happened. The next story is by Mike VanHoose. That's the whole daddy. I don't know why I always say it like that. I'm sorry, Mike. The grayest part of the day for me was the few moments I sat alone in my car staring at the front entrance of the J.B. Franklin Loan Investment Building. 7:55 a.m. 5 minutes until the front doors opened. 5 minutes until the money changers and predator lenders pushed easy money and high interests on unsuspecting victims who were either too careless with their own finances or uninformed about how finances worked. I hate everything about this place. 47 years at the same desk, looking at the same people, filling the same paperwork had reduced my soul to ash. It was a shriveled existence, and one that I would be glad to be out of. I could see a crowd begin to form outside the door. That was a pity. I hope they leave. I reach across the console of my old Buick. My briefcase lay flat, staring into the dashboard from the passenger seat as if to say, hurry up and grab me, you old bastard. It was heavier than most days, but I have a few more things packed today. Fortunately, I have no clients to deal with today. 7:56 a.m. I sip coffee from the mug that I had since my days in the service. It's the only thing I have left. I've had my life longer than this job. I carried through 2 kids, 4 marriages and divorces, and 1 bout of alcoholism. It's just about the only friend that I have left. The coffee is cold. No better that thick, chilly sludge. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. I look in the rearview mirror and try in vain to push wispy remnants of gray hair to one side. It looks horrible. 7:57 a.m. The crowd outside the building begins to stir. Someone, a large-breasted woman with big hair and impossibly red lips, is the center of attention. She looks like she used to be pretty in her younger days. Beautiful, maybe. I can see that she's used to being looked at. Her good looks have been eroded by age and hard living. The act she puts on for the menfolk surrounding her is shameless. The way they drool over her is worse. I reach into my sports coat and pull out the only remaining picture that I care about. The black and white crispness of the old lines has faded, like me, into various shades of gray. Dog-eared corners and creases like cracks on ice run across the memory of the old 5x7 in my hand, but I can still make out the scene. Two small kids, a man, a woman, all four of us smiling. The memory of that day is still ingrained in my consciousness. I can smell wildflowers lining a lake shore just outside the picture. I can hear the waves from the lake rushing and retreating across the man-made beach. I can picture the cabin that we rented for the summer. It was a happy time, perhaps the only truly happy time that I'd ever known. I wish it would have lasted, but accidents do happen. That's what I have always told myself, but it never works. I've relived that day, every day since. The kids would have been 37 and 33 now. 7:58 a.m. The door latch on the car sticks some. My door is slightly off kilter. I shove my way through and almost topple onto the wet pavement below. One of my coworkers, a snotty young man named Thad, brags about his women and his parties. He told me once that I needed a new car, like it was some sort of revelation. I just nodded and pretended I didn't hear him call me a stupid old shitbag. I hope Thad is at work today. Gathering myself, I fumble for the keys and lock the door. Not that it matters. Bad knees force me to lean on the hood for a second. They are like the Buick. In cold weather, they need some time to warm up before they run right. Heaving the briefcase to the hood, it takes me 3 tries to remember the lock code before it'll open. It would be my luck that today would be the day that I'd forget the combination. Everything is in its place. I can see the watch face moving backward. 3 minutes. 7:59 a.m. I walk to the front door with the keys and make my way through the thickening crowd. Everything in me wants to scream at these fools to get away. I don't. I stand by the door and wait for everyone else, for the nightman to open them from the inside. It's his last job of every night. I think how unseemly it would be for him to be asleep on the job, especially today. 8 a.m. The doors open on time, and I make my way to my desk. It looks bare. Casually walk to the restroom and begin prepping. There is not much to do other than lock the bathroom door. A couple of my coworkers, Thad included, have gathered around a desk nearby. Good. I place my briefcase on the sink and open it. The clock's absurd neon red numbers continue fading, closing in on the inevitable 0 that it counts toward. 1 minute. I lightly brush the wires and the coupling, holding the 10 sticks of dynamite with my fingertips, and feel a trickle escaping my eyes, splashing on the absurd numbers as they trickle past 30 seconds. I catch a glimpse of the man staring back at me in the mirror. Of all the people in the world, I hate him the most. 10 seconds. Clutching the sink and staring into my own reflection, I can hear myself whisper a tone that sounds like pure hate. God damn you. You ruined me. 5 seconds. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. I close my eyes and wait. I had a feeling it was going to be a bomb the second that it mentioned the specific time in the second sentence, but that's possibly because of the familiarity, enough familiarity with Fight Club, with it starting out with a bomb and going towards a bomb town. And we got some of those actual similar, I would say, Chuck Palahniuk Fight Club vibes with this, with how this guy is. I could even see this thing, like, at this moment, doing the flashback in the same way that Fight Club does. Very nice. And the final story for this month is by Barry J Koostachin. Oh my god, she ruined me, he thought to himself. Oh, you poor bastard. Merrick's voice quivered as he averted his gaze from the petrified figure before him. I can't believe that you turned him into stone. His voice rose a pitch. I'm just having fun, her languid voice, laden with a chilling indifference to the consequences of her action. Having fun, he repeated. Merrick's gaze was drawn back to the two statues that were once living men, frozen in time by the raven's dark power. He swallowed hard again, his voice cracked into a squeak, turning both of them into statues. "What the hell is wrong with you? Shush, boy," she purred, her voice a seductive whisper that sent thousands of prickles dancing down Merrick's spine. "Their condition isn't permanent," she assured him. Merrick opened his mouth to protest, her voice abruptly hardened to a cold, sharp edge. "They hampered you twice before." Her crimson eyes bore into Merrick's with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "Piss me off again." Merrick's head tilted back, eyes blinking, heart hammering away. "Now we've got this out of the way," the raven's expression softened. "You have another task to complete." "Oh, I'm gonna have a heart attack." Merrick dropped to the stone floor. "Come on, this is not the time to faint," the raven responded. "You're a man. Faint on your own time." Merrick glowered at her as a lopsided grin curled upward on her face. He got to his feet. She held the same glass-like metal object, but it's smaller. "This will give you an edge." It disappeared into his chest. Merrick found himself in between shore and cliff that barred his escape. Cold breeze drifted from the ocean. He hefted the large machete, stuck in a hard place and in pure terror. The satchel swung lightly from his hip. He fished out a small cord of twine, securing it to his hip. His eyes watered. He gagged at the stench of the walking tree creatures. They shambled toward him, a low rumbling. Whew! One of the beasts roared at him. Merrick swung the machete. It sliced through the fiend's gnarled neck with a wet thud, severing its head from its twisted torso. The decapitated beast lashed out at him, narrowly striking his head off. He swung the machete again and again, hewing off those grisly limbs. He quickly glanced one side to the next. Bingo, a further side of the shoreline, an entrance that would lead... Bingo, a further side to the shoreline, an entrance that would lead to his salvation from his twisted round. Roars of those walking abominations snapped his attention back to them. Yet more of these abominations lumbered toward them. Their malevolent presence saturated his shoreline, making the sea brown and a dead zone. Two of those fiends hurled large boulders at him. One whistled past. He danced backwards and sideways, narrowly being crippled. He leapt from boulder, swinging the machete, severing the top of its head off. "Oof!" It boomed. "Oof!" He took deeper each step into the nightmarish realm. As they continued to bar his way, he darted toward the direction. His new dance partner lumbered forward. The fiend lunged. He pirouetted, swinging the blade with both hands, severing its legs with a wet thud. It collapsed to the stony ground. "Oof!" it shrieked. "Oh, shit!" Merrick squeaked. He barely moved out of the way, a boulder hitting one of their own. Each struggled, each danced, equally terrifying. He scattered backward, keeping a good distance between himself and the monstrosities in the granite wall of the tower's cliff. They pelted more boulders at him. He danced away in a twisted waltz, minutes stretched in hours, as he slowly inched toward safety. Smart, he thought to himself with a mixture of fear and caution. They continued to creep closer while keeping their distance. Tendrils of darkness formed around them as cliffs formed evil shadows that hid the sinister presence that would either flatten or consume him. One of those fiends somehow managed to sneak behind him. Merrick dodged its kick. He swung his machete, severing its leg. It crawled toward him fast. Merrick severed its right arm, more charged until Merrick dispatched the last one. He bolted toward the cavern fast as his feet could carry him. His lungs ached, throat burned. After reaching deep inside the cavern, he coughed and vomited his shallow breaths. His dead bodies of mummified corpses littered inside the cavern. Men who perished. He shoved that thought aside. He looked up and stared at the opening above him. He fished out paracord, an empty small hemp sack, from his satchel, scooped some dry sand into the bag, safely securing his meager possessions. He slowly climbed upward, one agonizing foot by foot. He gritted his teeth. He willed himself to become one with the rock faces. He sat on a small ledge. His arms and hands had terrible migraines, and just one more quarter. Merrick moved his arms and hands in deliberate motion to give himself a moment to gain a bit of strength in his limbs. He looked upward again and continued to ascend upward. With a low groan, he pulled himself on top, his chest heaving, his muscles now reduced to sniffles. "Oh!" A man's voice above him, hoarse snorting above him. "Lovely. Bandits," he croaked and coughed. "This is no place to pass out, boy," the man answered. "Boy." The gruff voice slapped his face twice. "Don't you pass out, you hear me?" He slipped into darkness. His eyes fluttered open. "Sand?" The familiar voice interrupted. "Seriously?" Her black eyes stared into his. "I figured throwing some sand in someone or something's eyes." He groaned, pushing himself up. "Did I miss a rodeo?" Merrick smiled as he saw her strapped with a pistol, her hair in a ponytail. I never know what's going to come with you, Barry. It's kind of... I know that these are continual characters because I recognize Merrick and I recognize the Raven, but I'm glad that you submitted again. It's so separate from the last time you submitted, though. I'm trying to remember the story or to see it all together. But I'm looking forward to more. I hope that you are still writing. That will be the last of the stories this time around. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. What was your favorite story this time? Let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate all of you. I told you, LMIAY is the best because we get such different stories every single time. You guys are so creative, so amazing. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. Check out next month's prompt. It is now down there in the description where you normally find it at the link tree. And till next time, have a great week. What a way to start out the week. What a way to start out the month. Happy Labor Day. Have a great holiday. And don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?